Namaha. With the benign blessings of the Acharyas of Kanchi Kamakoti Peetham, the Department of Sanskrit and Indian Culture is organizing the endowment lecture program today on the eve of 91st Jayanti Utsav of Jagadguru Pujyasri Jayendra Saraswati Sankaracharya Swamigal. It's a great honor and prize or a privilege to the Department of Sanskrit. Every year actually used to have such type of program. And before going to start this program, I would like to invite the Honorable Vice Chancellor of this university, Professor J. Srinivasu, who is presiding over this function today. And we people are completely fortunate enough today to have such a dignitaries having versatility in the field of theoretical physics, astronomy, mathematics, philosophy, so on and so forth. He is none other than today's expert, Professor M.D. Srinivas. Sir, we are highly pleased actually to have with you within this August gathering to get an inspired talk on this Jayanti Utsav of His Holiness. Faculty members from various departments, heads of the department, students from the Department of Sanskrit, management, various department actually students, those who have assembled here to make this function a grand success. I wholeheartedly welcoming you all for this gala program. Thank you all.
I now request Professor G. Srinivasu sir, our Honorable Vice Chancellor, to address the gathering and bless us with his bhashanam.
Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Ninga students ellame Tamil, Telugu, எத்தனை பேர் இருக்காங்க? Telugu, only Telugu, only few. All others are Tamil students, right? So, in the program, in the lecture, vechinade Telugu kuda you also try to understand Tamil. Enna Tamil students புரியிற மாதிரி இருந்தால் இது ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸுக்கு ரீச் ஆகணும்ன்றது தான் இதோட மெயின், தவிர ஏதோ சொல்லிட்டு போகிறதுன்றது விஷயம் இல்லை. இதில் எல்லாமே ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸுக்கு ரீச் ஆகணும் மேட்ரு. அதுக்கு ஃபஸ்ட்டு தேவையானது என்னன்னா ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸு சைலண்ட்டாக இருக்கணும், இருந்து அப்சர்வ் பண்ணணும் நடக்கிறது. உங்களுக்காக தான் இது எல்லாமே நடக்கிறது. சார் எம்டி ஸ்ரீனிவாஸ் சார் ஃபிசிக்ஸ் ப்ரொஃபஸர், மெட்ராஸ் யூனிவர்சிட்டி ஃபிசிக்ஸ் ப்ரொஃபஸராக ஒர்க் பண்ணி 96 ரிட்டையர் ஆனார். அவர் பிஹெச்டி அமெரிக்காவில் பிஹெச்டி பண்ணார். பெரிய ஃபிசிக்ஸ் சயின்டிஸ்ட் அவர். அவருக்கு நம்ம நாட்டில் கிண்டலாக சொல்லுவாங்க நிறைய பேர், என்னன்னா சயின்ஸு டெக்னாலஜி என்றது நம்ம நாட்டில் இல்லை, வெளிநாட்டில் தான் நிறையா. அங்கேருந்து தான் வந்தது செல்ஃபோன், அங்கேருந்து வந்தது ட்ரெயின், அங்கேருந்து வந்தது பஸ்ஸு, ஏரோப்ளேன், எல்லாமே நம்ம யூஸ் பண்ணுறது எல்லாமே அங்கேருந்து தான் வந்தது என்றது சொல்லி நம்ம நாட்டு நாமளே குறைச்சப்படுத்தி பேசுறதுன்றது நமக்கு பழக்கமாகி போச்சு. இதிலிருந்து நாம் வெளியே வரணும். இந்த மாதிரி ஒரு ஐடியாலஜி, ஒரு திங்கிங் என்றது சரியானது இல்லை. ஏன்னா இப்போ சொல்லுவார் சார், எப்படி இந்தியன் நாலேஜ் சிஸ்டம் இது எப்படி ரிலேட் பண்ண முடியும் என்றது சார் சொல்ல போகிறாரு. இந்த யூனிவர்சிட்டியே எஸ்டாப்ளிஷ் பண்ணது ஜெயேந்திர பெரியவா மடம் இருக்கிற சுவாமிகள் எல்லாமே இந்த யூனிவர்சிட்டியை எஸ்டாப்ளிஷ் பண்ணதே வெறும் ஃபிசிக்ஸோ கெமிஸ்ட்ரியோ எம்பிஏஓ எம்சிஏஓ சொல்லி கொடுக்கறதுக்கு மட்டும் இல்லை, நம்ம இந்தியாவிலே பாரத நாட்டிலே முன்னால் இருந்த சயின்ஸு டெக்னாலஜி இன்னும் நிறைய விஷயங்கள் எல்லாமே எப்படி இருந்தது என்றது கூட தெரிஞ்சுக்கிட்டு இந்த மாடர்ன் எஜுகேஷன் நம்ம ட்ரெடிஷ்னல் சயின்ஸ் ட்ரெடிஷ்னல் நாலேஜ் இந்த ரெண்டும் மிக்ஸ் பண்ணி நம்ம ஒரு ஸ்பெஷல் மனிதனாக நம்ம ஆகணும், நம்ம பாரத நாட்டுக்கு நம்ம பெருமை கொண்டு வரணும் என்றது தான் இந்த யூனிவர்சிட்டியினுடைய விஷன் அண்ட் மிஷன். அதனாலேயே முதலாக இந்த யூனிவர்சிட்டியில் ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ண கோர்ஸ் ஃபஸ்ட் கோர்ஸ் என்னன்னா சம்ஸ்கிருதமும் அலைடு சயின்சஸ் பயாலஜி ஸ்டாட்டிஸ்டிக்ஸ் இதெல்லாமே சேர்ந்து புது பழசு ரெண்டு சேர்ந்து ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸுக்கு சொல்லி கொடுத்தா அவங்க ஃப்யூச்சரில் பிஹெச்டி பண்ணும்போதோ ஏதாவது பண்ணும்போது அவங்களுக்கு இன்னும் நிறைய ஐடியாஸ் வரும்னு சொல்லி முதல்ல அந்த கோர்ஸ் தான் ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணியிருக்கோம். அப்புறமா பேச்சுலர் ஆஃப் சம்ஸ்கிருத் அண்ட் கம்ப்யூட்டர் சயின்ஸ் என்ற பேரில் சம்ஸ்கிருதமும் கம்ப்யூட்டர் சயின்ஸு ரெண்டு ஈக்குவல் இம்பார்ட்டன்ஸ் கொடுத்துட்டு அதையும் ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணியிருக்கோம். அந்த மாதிரி இன்டிகிரேட்டட் ரிசர்ச் சம்ஸ்கிருதம் டிபார்ட்மெண்ட் இருக்குது. சம்ஸ்கிருதத்தில் இருக்கிற இப்போ யாராவது நான் பகவத்கீதையில் இருக்கிற மேனேஜ்மெண்ட்டு இல்லைன்னா மேத்தமேட்டிக்ஸ் ரிலேட்டடு ஃபிசிக்ஸ் ரிலேட்டடு நான் பண்ண போகிறேன் பிஹெச்டின்னு சொன்னால் முதல்ல அவங்களுக்கு இம்பார்ட்டன்ஸ் கொடுத்துட்டு அந்த மாதிரி நிறைய பிஹெச்டிஸ் நம்ம பண்ணியிருக்கோம். ரீசெண்டாக ஒரு 5 years பேக் ஒரு டிஃபென்ஸ் ஆஃபீஸர், பெரிய ஆஃபீஸர், டிஃபென்ஸில் ஒர்க் பண்ணவர், அவரே நமக்கு இது எல்லாமே நீங்கள் கீழே அந்த கிரவுண்ட் ஃப்ளோரில் ஷோகேஸில் பார்த்தா இந்த ரைஃபிள்ஸ் எல்லாமே இருக்கும். அந்த ரைஃபிள்ஸ் எல்லாமே ப்ரெசென்ட் பண்ணது அவர் டிஃபென்ஸ் ஆஃபீஸர் தான். அவர் பிஹெச்டி பண்ணது பிக் பேங் தியரி இன் சம்ஸ்கிருதம் டெக்ஸ்ட். சம்ஸ்கிருதத்திலே எப்படி பிக் பேங் தியரி பற்றி சொல்லப்பட்டு இருக்குன்றது அவர் பிஹெச்டி பண்ணி ஒரு புக்கு பப்ளிஷ் கூட பண்ணியிருக்கார் அவர். இந்த மாதிரி ஒரு புது ஐடியாஸோடு நீங்கள் முன்னால் ஃப்ரண்ட்டுக்கு வரணும். ஐகேஎஸ் என்ற பேரில், ஐகேஎஸ்னா இந்தியன் நாலேஜ் சிஸ்டம், இதுக்காக நம்ம மேத்தமெட்டிக்ஸ் டிபார்ட்மெண்ட்டில் அவங்க காயத்ரி மேடம், கொண்டா ஸ்ரீனிவாசராவ் பிரசிடென்ட் கண்ட்ரோலர் ஆஃப் எக்ஸாமினேஷன்ஸ், அவர் சம்ஸ்கிருதம் டிபார்ட்மெண்ட்டு நரசிம்மன், நவீன், இவங்க எல்லாமே சேர்ந்து சம்ஸ்கிருதத்தில் இருக்கிற ஒரு நியாய சாஸ்திரம் என்றது இருக்குது. அதில் தான் இந்த உலகம் பற்றி எல்லாமே எப்படி உலகம் சிருஷ்டியாகிடுது, ஆட்டம்ஸ், வைசேஷிகம், நியாயம், ஆட்டம்ஸ் எல்லாமே அணுக்கள் எப்படி இருக்குது, அதனுடைய சுபாவம் என்ன, அது என்ன பண்ணும், இது எல்லாமே இந்த மேத்தமெட்டிக்ஸ் அண்ட் நியாயா இந்த ரெண்டும் சேர்த்து அவங்க ப்ராஜெக்ட் ஒன்று பண்ணியிருக்காங்க. இன்னும் அது பார்த்து இன்னும் நிறைய ப்ராஜெக்ட்ஸ் நமக்கு கவர்மெண்ட் ஆஃப் இந்தியா கொடுக்கறதுக்கு ரெடியாக இருக்குது. ஐகேஎஸ் மூலமாக நிறைய ப்ராஜெக்ட்ஸ் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கிறோம். நீங்கள் ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸு கூட இதில் இன்வால்வ் ஆகி உங்கள் ஐடியாஸ் நிறைய வரணும் இதில். அதுக்கு தான் இந்த மாதிரி சார் நமக்கு நல்லா இன்றைக்கி அவருக்கு பத்மஸ்ரீ அவார்டு வந்தது. பத்மஸ்ரீ அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு பெரிய ஒரு பெரிய ஸ்காலர் நமக்கு இன்றைக்கி வந்ததும் நம்ம யூனிவர்சிட்டி பர்பஸ் இது ஜெயேந்திர சுவாமிகள் இந்த யூனிவர்சிட்டி இன்றைக்கி அவருடைய பிறந்த நாளை வச்சுக்கிட்டு நாம் இந்த ப்ரோக்ராம் பண்ண போகிறோம். ஸோ நீங்கள் எல்லாமே நல்லபடியாக இந்த ஸ்பீச் கேட்டு இதனால் பெனிஃபிட்ஸு நீங்கள் எல்லாமே நோட்ஸு கூட கொண்டு வந்து இருந்தால் நான் ரொம்ப சந்தோஷப்பட்டு இருப்பேன். இனிமேல் நீங்கள் ஏதாவது ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸ் எந்த ஸ்பீச்சு எந்த லெக்சர் ப்ரோக்ராமுக்கு போனாலும் ஏதோ வந்திருக்கோம் உட்கார்ந்துருக்கோம் அந்த மாதிரி இல்லாமல் உங்களுக்காக தான் பண்ணுறது. ஒரு நோட்ஸ் கூட எடுத்துக்கு வந்து அந்த பாயிண்ட்ஸ் நீங்கள் நோட் பண்ணி அதை பற்றி கொஞ்சம் திங்க் பண்ணால் உங்களுக்கு எங்கேயோ ரிலேஷன் கிடைக்கும். கிடைக்கும். நிறைய விஷயம் இருக்குது இந்தியன் நாலேஜ் சிஸ்டமில். மெட்டலர்ஜி இருக்குது, சயின்ஸ் ரிலேட்டடாகவே நிறைய இருக்குது. இது எல்லாமே நீங்கள் எங்கே ஏதாவது ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணி நீங்கள் யோசனை பண்ணலாம். அதுக்கு இந்த யூனிவர்சிட்டி எப்போவுமே சப்போர்ட் பண்ணிகிட்டே இருக்கும். நம்ம மட்டுமே இல்லை, ஐஐடிஸ்லேருந்து ஐஐடிஸ்ல இருந்து கூட நிறைய பேர் நமக்கு சப்போர்ட் பண்ணுறதுக்கு ரெடியாக இருக்காங்க. நீங்கள் ஒரு ஸ்பெஷல் மனிதனாக, ஒரு ஸ்பெஷல் எஜுகேஷனிஸ்டாக, சயின்டிஸ்டாக நீங்கள் மாறணும் என்றது தான் எங்கள் எல்லாருடைய ஒரு இன்டென்ஷன். ஸோ இதுக்கு நல்ல பலன் வர மாதிரி பண்ணுங்கோ. நன்றி, நல்லது, சுபம்.
Thank you, sir, for your kind words and presidential address of the today's function. Today we have a prestigious guest as a speaker of today's program, Professor M.D. Srinivas ji. He is currently the chairman of Center for Policy Studies at Chennai. After completing his PhD in the University of Rochester, New York, USA, Srinivas sir taught at the Department of Theoretical Physics, University of Madras during 1976 to 1996. In 1990, Srinivas ji, along with Dr. Jatinder Bajaj and a few colleagues, founded the Center for Policy Studies at Chennai with the objective of comprehending India from an Indian perspective. The center has produced a significant work that places different aspects of the Indian situation today in historical and civilizational continuity with our past, and thus offers innovative ways of looking at and solving some of our current problems. Taking forward the work of renowned Gandhian scholar Sri Dharmpal, Srinivas ji and his colleagues have analyzed the detailed palm leaf accounts of several localities of northern Tamil Nadu in the 18th century, which has provided us with a concrete micro-level description of the functioning of pre-British Indian polity in its various dimensions. Since 1980s, Srinivas sir and his colleagues took up serious scholarly studies of Indian traditions of science and technology. In collaboration with the renowned scholar Professor K.V. Sharma ji, Srinivas and his colleagues, Professors M.S. Sriram, K. Ramasubramanian and R. Venkateshwara Pai, have studied many seminal works of Kerala School of Astronomy and Mathematics. So all these works are, basement for the Indian knowledge systems what we are talking today. Srinivas ji is a member of the National Syllabus and Teaching Learning Material Development Committee, NSTC. He has earlier served as Vice Chairman of the Indian Institute of Advanced Studies, Shimla, and as member of the Indian Council of Historical Research. Srinivas ji was elected a Fellow of the Indian National Science Academy in 2023 for his work in history and philosophy of science. His name has been included among the list of Padma Shri awardees this year. Kanchi Perival has been showering his blessings and guiding the studies of the center ever since its inception. He had given Anugraha Bhashanam in a sadas on Annam Bahukurvita, the classical discipline of growing and sharing food in plenty, held at Tirumala in 1996. Recently, Perival Shankaracharya was kind enough to visit the center at Kundratur on July 5th, 2025. Such a great knowledgeable person and Padma Shri awardee, such a great professor, M.D. Srinivas ji is with us today. We are blessed, sir, to have you in midst of us on this gracious occasion. I request Professor G. Srinivasu sir and the head of department Sanskrit Indian Culture, Dr. Devajyoti Janaji, to honor the guest of today with the university stall and the shawl. Thank you, sir. I now request Professor M.D. Srinivas sir, Chairman, Center for Policy Studies, Chennai, to give the endowment lecture, Indian Knowledge Traditions, their past, present and future. Welcome, sir.
देवे देशे च देवे दैहे दैवे देहे च देशे च भक्त्यारोग्य सुखप्रदं बुधपामर सेव्यं तं श्री जयेन्द्रं नमाम्यहम्. எல்லோருக்கும் வணக்கம், நமஸ்காரம். தமிழ் என்னோட தாய்மொழி இல்லாதால் நான் இங்கிலீஷில் பேசுவேன். அப்பப்போ தமிழ் கொஞ்சம் கலக்க போகிறேன். அது உங்களுக்கு இங்கிலீஷ் புரியுமா தமிழ் தெரியுமா எனக்கு தெரியாது. நான் பேசுகிறது தமிழ் அந்த விதமாக இருக்கும். It's a great blessing to be speaking in this sacred institution established by Jayendra Periwal. Our center has been blessed by his association as a member of our Acharya Sabha. The then Bala Periyava had visited our first Sadas done in Tirupati in 1996 and gave Anugraha Bhashanam on our book Annam Bahukurvita, the discipline of growing and sharing food in plenty in India. And as was mentioned, Periyava was gracious enough to visit our center in Kundratur on July 5th when he was visiting Kandaleshwara temple in Kundratur. So, I don't know whether this is visible. You can come a little bit more to the front. I will try to make my talk as sort of friendly to you as possible. Let me see. Next one, sir. So, is there a way in which I can move the... ஸோ இந்த பாரதிய ஞான பரம்பரைன்னா என்ன? நம்ம நாட்டில் பழைய காலத்திலேருந்து ஒரு விதமாக சிஸ்டமடைஸ்டு நாலேஜ் அப்படின்னு சொல்லக்கூடிய முறைகள் எல்லாம் பாரதிய ஞான பரம்பரைக்குள்ளே அடங்கி இருக்கு. அதில் வேதங்கள், வேதாங்கங்கள், இதிகாசங்கள், புராணங்கள், உபவேதங்கள், மற்ற எல்லா வித்யகளும் சாஸ்திரங்களும் அடங்கும். அது அவளுக்கு படிக்க முடியாது. We need not have that. I can use it and say something because it's difficult for them to read it from there. So I will just use my slide and say few points which I think may be of relevance to them. ஸோ தேவையில்லை, ஸ்லைட்ஸ் நம்ம ஆஃப் பண்ணிடலாம். சில ஃபோட்டோஸ் இருக்கும், அதை வச்சு நம்ம காட்டலாம். ஓகே. ஸோ தீஸ் ட்ரெடிஷன்ஸ் வர் ஃப்ளரிஷிங் இன் வேரியட் ஸ்பியர்ஸ் ஆஃப் அவர் லைஃப். பல்வேறு முறைகளில் இந்த நம்ம பாரதிய ஞான பரம்பரை செயல்பட்டது. டில் த அர்லி டிகேட்ஸ் ஆஃப் 19th century, 19ஆம் நூற்றாண்டு வரைக்கும் நம்ம பாரதிய ஞான பரம்பரை நம்ம நாட்டுக்கு ஒரு செல்வமாக வளர்ந்தது. These traditions were founded in our basic foundational civilizational values, especially our understanding of the fundamental unity of all creation. Okay, sir, no problem. So, இந்த ஞான பரம்பரைக்கு அடிப்படையில் நம்ம சர்வம் கல்விதம் பிரம்மா, ஈஷாவாசியமிதம் சர்வம் இப்படி சொல்லக்கூடிய முழு சிருஷ்டியும் ஒன்றாக இணைந்து இட் ஹேஸ் எ சேக்ரெட்னஸ், இட் ஹேஸ் எ டிவினிட்டி. இந்த ஒரு ஃபண்டமெண்டல் சிவிலைசேஷனல் ஐடியா வச்சு நம்ம பாரதிய ஞான பரம்பரை முழுவதும் வளர்ச்சி பெற்றது. நம்ம நாட்டுக்கு ஒரு பெரிய ஞான சிறந்த நாடு, wise nation, a nation which is flourishing in both material and knowledge front. To give this kind of an feeling in the whole world, it was basically our Bharatiya Jnanam Parampara which was responsible. And during its history, வரலாற்றில் நாம் பல்வேறு நாடுகளிலிருந்து சில ஒரு ஐடியாஸ் டெக்னிக்ஸ் அது நாம் ஒன்றாக நமக்கு சேர்த்துண்டிருந்தாலும் our knowledge parampara was really based upon the foundational ideas of Indian civilization and its understanding. That is, we might have borrowed some ideas, some concepts and adopted them as a part of our knowledge. But till 200 years ago, our knowledge traditions were completely founded on our own parampara and its civilizational basis. So, all this changed about 200 years ago due to the dominance of the Western civilization on Indian scene by the direct rule of the British on India. And in particular by their enforcing their educational system, their implanting their educational system in India, which did not give any place to our knowledge traditions at all. So the new educational system was as if Indians were a blank slate on which they are teaching. Even what we knew ourselves, they were teaching it as a part of their own tradition of knowledge. In the last 150 ஆண்டுகளில் பெரிய வித்வான்கள் நம்ம நாட்டோட பண்பாடை ஆராய்ந்தவர்கள் பல்வேறு ஆராய்ச்சிகளை செஞ்சு நம்ம ஞான பரம்பரை என்னன்றது நமக்கு சொல்லிக் கொடுத்தா கூட நாம் இன்னைக்கு எந்த ஒரு துறையிலும் நமக்கு நன்றாக புரிஞ்சிருக்கு நம்ம ஞான பரம்பரை என்னன்றது. வேதாந்தத்தை கூட, கணிதத்தை கூட, சங்கீதத்தை கூட நமக்கு என்ன பரம்பரை இருந்ததுன்றது நமக்கு இன்னைக்கு நன்றாக தெரியும் என்று சொல்லுற நிலைமையில் நாம் இல்லை. ஏன்னா இதை பற்றி ஆராய்ச்சி ஒன்றும் நம்ம கல்லூரிகளில் நடக்கலை, நம்ம பெரிய பெரிய இன்ஸ்டிடியூட்டில் இதை பற்றி ஆராய்ச்சி நடக்கலை, நம்ம ஸ்கூலில் நம்ம குழந்தைகளுக்கு நாம் இது சொல்லித்தரல. அதனால் இந்த விஷயத்தை பற்றி நம்ம ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸுக்காகட்டும் ரிசர்ச் ஸ்காலர்ஸுக்காகட்டும் நம்ம நாட்டோட பண்பாடை தெரிந்து நாம் பல்வேறு துறைகளில் எப்படி செயல்படுறோன்றது அது முடியாத விஷயமாக இருக்குது. So, much of the research which has been conducted on Indian knowledge traditions, we talk about them widely everywhere today in the last 10 years or 5 years. But what do we really know? If I ask somebody, what has been the major contribution of Aryabhatta? An Indian student will not be able to say even 4 meaningful sentences because many of us might not have known the name of Aryabhatta except that some satellite was named after him 50 years ago. Or people will have some strange ideas that Aryabhatta discovered heliocentric model of universe or something else. So our idea in teaching even Indian past is often to claim that we knew something that is being done in the world today. It may be true that in several spheres we did several things thousands of years ago which became common in the modern Western world 400 years ago. So we knew the system of representing numbers in terms of just 10 symbols, what is called the decimal place value system. So today we write a number like 132 just by 3 symbols, writing 1 with 3 with 2. So the 1 stands for 100, 3 stands for 3 times 10, 30, and 2 stands for 2. So this system was known in India more than 2200 years ago. And with the zero, this system made it possible to write down every number with just these 9 symbols, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., and 0, and do all the calculations that we do today in our class 1, class 2, class 3. Nobody in the world knew how to divide easily like this. But our books, ancient books, Aryabhatiya of Aryabhata in 500, or Brahmasputa Siddhanta of Brahmagupta in 628, they discuss all this as if this is common knowledge. They do not say who discovered all this, because even in what is called Pingala's Chandas Sutra, written in 3rd century or around that time, talks about Shunya, the symbol for zero. So this is a very old invention which changed doing arithmetic from a very, very difficult business to something that can be taught to every child. So what is called universal numeracy became possible by this discovery of decimal place value system. And today, of course, we do not place much importance to universal numeracy literacy in our actual system that we follow, though we say that the first 5 years is something that every child should have full capacity to read, write, calculate simple problems in 3, 4, 5 years. And this is what we used to do till about 200 years ago in what we call our pile schools, all our indigenous system of education, very easily. In the same way, at a very ancient time, our experts of language, they discovered a way of representing sounds by symbols, our letters. The Indian alphabet, we say it's called Varnamala in Devanagari or in most Indian languages. This Varnamala was known to India very, very long time ago, at the time of the Padapatha or Ganapatha of the Vedas or the Pratishakyas. They discovered this Varnamala. What is very special about it? We can go down. But they were able to write down our sounds that we speak, the vowels, consonants, in terms of the place they are spoken from, the effort that was taken, and using that, we had a unique symbol for every sound representing the language. So, this system could make it very easy to read. Unlike reading English, where you will not know whether a symbol, say C, it stands for ka or cha or what sound it stands for, you have to sort of know it by memory, the symbol itself. So the Indian script, this Varnamala, in fact went to large parts of Asia. Not only it was followed in most of India, all the Indian languages are based upon, their scripts are based upon the same Varnamala, except that the modern Tamil language does not have as many symbols for all the sounds that are there in the Varnamala. So this made it possible that every child within 2 years knows all the symbols, is able to write down for every sound, and is able to read any manuscript or a book, and is able to recite it correctly without error. So this universal system of literacy and numeracy was possible by these great discoveries of India, which was done in very, very ancient times. since many Sanskrit scholars are here, I have to say something about the development of the various knowledge systems in India. And the basis for all this is in the discipline called Nyaya Shastra, because that discusses how do we understand understand anything. And this is common knowledge, most of you know. We understand things through observation. Then we understand things through reasoning from what we observe. And we also know things through the ancient or even modern books or by what they now, called Maya scheme, which is something like what we use in science in most of the time. There is a scheme of logic of Aristotle also, but that scheme was purely deductive. It had little to do with our argument in natural sciences. But the information, which is more like the argument or the way we understand things in the universe. So this is the Nyaya school of 400 before the Common Era. Not only that, we had an understanding of hierarchy of this system. So the first understanding was that what we observe, that overrules anything that is given by theory or anything that is given in a book. That what is stronger than what is called Anumana or Agama. So even that even if somebody comes up with hundreds of arguments, say well-established drug doesn't work, need to do. I think there is some problem with this sound system. It's coming on and off. Okay, but understanding that a drug in the Ashta group, which is well known to not the Virechana, some argument makes is to be now is it better? So this is used. Okay. இது வந்து போடுது இது இது ஆஃப் பண்ணிடலாமா? So that pratyaksha overrides anumana is a principle that's not accepted in most sciences today. Most sciences look for what are called general laws, and they think general laws are more important than what is observed. So this is a very special Indian approach to the knowledge that we acquire in the world. In the same way, we have another principle that Agama cannot contradict Pratyaksha. That is, what is written in a book is, if it's contrary to what we actually observe, we should go by what we actually observe, or try to see whether we have misunderstood what is written in the book or what has been told to us. So this is also a very important principle. So this hierarchy amongst Pramanas, that Anumana is something which is the least reliable. Agama, what is given from time immemorial in books, or what is given to us by the Pratyaksha of others whom they recount to us. So that is Agama or Shabda, is next, and Pratyaksha is the final arbiter. So this is so even in Vedanta or in medicine or in any other science. This is something very characteristic of Indian knowledge systems, that we always thought that theories are what we construct from our observation of the universe. And therefore, the reality is something that is there in the universe, and the theories are only our theories about the universe. We should not confuse our theories being an absolute replica of what is there in the universe. It is only our approach to understand a very complex universe. So this is at the heart of all Indian knowledge traditions. Now I got something about Indian astronomy, just to tell you how ancient it is. So I'll just give you one instance which we had forgotten and which we have been recovering in the last 15-20 years. That the Indians were amongst the oldest civilization to have observed what is called the Dhruva Tara. All of you have heard of the story of Dhruva, and that there is a star in the sky which represents Dhruva. The fact is, this Dhruva is there in whole of Indian literature at various times. But the oldest mention of it occurs in what is called the Taittiriya Aranyaka. And in Taittiriya Aranyaka, this Dhruvatara is said to be present in a constellation called Shimshumara. And it is at the tail of that Shimshumara constellation. But that is not the Dhruva that we see today. Today, the star that we see in the northern direction, which we show as the Dhruva, is in a constellation today called Alpha Ursa Minoris. It's a star of that. So what is this? What is happening here? So what is happening here is that, as you all know, that the Earth spins around an axis. And that axis, if you extend it to the sky, if there is a star at that position, you will call that Dhruvatara. Because around that, the rest of the bodies that you see in the sky go around. So the point where the Earth's axis meets the sky, that location is Dhruva, but whether there is a star or there is a matter which changes with time. So why does that happen? Because this axis of the Earth goes around. It goes around very, very slowly with respect to stars. So if one star is located at it, the star called Vega, Abhijit, was located at the North Celestial Pole in 14,000 AD. So this Dhruvatara, which is called Thuban in modern astronomy, was at the North Celestial Pole in 3000 BC. And current pole star is called Polaris, is near the pole. So this movement of the axis of the Earth is called precession. This was known to ancient Greeks after Hipparchus, but it was known to India from very, very ancient time, that even Maitrayani Samhita says, Dhruvaha chalati, Dhruvaha prachalati. So how does this happen? So this is the orbit of Earth's axis over time. It takes 25,600 years to go around once. It's a very, very slow motion. So it goes through 1 degree in 72 years. So here is the constellation known as Shishumara, and its Pucha is this Dhruvatara, and that was at the time 2,800 years prior to the Common Era. But this is 2000 AD. In fact, very near 2100, the star that we are seeing near the North Celestial Pole, that will be exactly at the North Celestial Pole. So in between, from 2800 to 2100, there is really no star sitting exactly at the North Pole. In the last 300, 400 years, people were guided by this as the pole star. In 2800 up to 2000, people were guided by the Shimshumara Dhruva, what was called Abhaya Dhruva star, as the pole star. So India is the only civilization which has seen and talked about both the ancient pole star and the current pole star. The astronomers, Aryabhatta, Brahmagupta, etc., they did not talk of Dhruvatara. They only mentioned Uttara Dhruva, the point in sky where the Earth's axis meets the sky. There was no star there. But Indians kept the memory of the old Abhaya Dhruva. So if you see commentaries, Dhruva comes in Vishnu Sahasranama. If you see the commentary of Adi Shankaracharya, he refers to the Taittiriya Aranyaka statement of Abhaya Dhruva. So this is one of the very major examples of the ancientness of our astronomy. So this has been mentioned both in Taittiriya Aranyaka, this Abhaya Dhruva. It's also there in the what is called the Brahmanda Puranas. As you know, the Puranas give a representation of the material in the Vedas for popular understanding. So, Uttana Pada Putroso Medhi Bhuto Dhruvo Divi Savai Brahmayete Nityam Chandradityo Grahaisya. It's around the Dhruva that everything goes. But then it discusses the Shishumare Vyavasthitaha. He is in the constellation which is called in English as dragon. And so it's called Alpha Draconis today. But that is not the pole star today. It was the pole star around 2800 before the Common Era. I've talked about already place value system, but I want to tell you something very interesting for scholars of Tamil. So we discovered the place value system, and we wrote a lot of books of mathematics, astronomy, everything. And most of Indian books are in the verse form. So in a verse, you cannot be saying 3242. So you have to find a way. So various systems were used to introduce numbers in the poetic meter. And the Chandathakulde Varamadri, we have to make a representation of number. One very well-known system is called Katapayadi, where we use the consonants ka, kha, ga, ga, nga, cha, cha, ja, ja, nya, from 1 to 9 and 0. Similarly, ta, ta, ta to na, 1 to 9 and 0. Pa to ma, 1 to 5. Yara lava, 1 to 8. Vowels have no value. So with these numbers were represented in our mathematics book, astronomy books. There are other systems also, we will not go to it. Now in Tamil language, we do not have the 5 consonants of Kavarga. Ka, nga is what is there in Tamil language. The ga sound is also there, but it does not have a symbol corresponding to it. So the Katapayadi system could not be used in Tamil Cheyul. So around 12th century, the Tamil scholars devised another system where the numbers are to be represented by vowels. A will represent 1, A will represent 2, E will represent 3, E will represent 4, U 5, 6, A 7, 8, I is 9, O are all 0. So this we see, for instance, in an astronomy text written in Tamil around 13th century called Chudamani Ullamudiyan. The last 2 chapters of Chudamani Ullamudiyan, which was written around 1240, deal with astronomical calculations of planetary and sun and motion of moon. The second half, this deals with Grahanam, eclipses. Now, in Indian astronomy, there was a very ancient method called Chandravakya, which gives the position of moon for every succeeding day. So these Chandravakyas were known in Sanskrit using the Katapayadi system. So what is the Chandravakya? Moon is going around the earth. Sometimes he is going around slowly, sometimes he is going around fastly, because it is going around in an elliptic orbit. In the point farthest in the ellipse from the earth, that we call as the apogee, there the moon's motion is the slowest. So that is called the Ucha. So when moon and its apogee are together at some time, because the rate at which moon moves around is determined by its distance from the apogee, angular distance from the apogee. So that day, whatever is the longitude, the next day at the same time, the longitude can be calculated exactly, and that is 12 degrees 3 minutes away from the first day. So like that for 248 days, in which moon and apogee together make 9 revolutions, that's called anomalistic revolution, these longitudes were tabulated. So it's very easy, if you happen to know a date on which moon and apogee are together at some time, next day at the same time, the moon will be 12 degrees 3 minutes away from that point. The third day it will be 24 degrees 9 minutes from that point. And these are given by these vakyas. Girna Shreya. Ga is Kaka Ga, that is 3. Na is 0. Shra, that Ra has to be taken, that is 2. Ya is 1. So that gives 12 degrees 3 minutes. So in Tamil, Vinnor Nathan. V, A, A, E is 3. O is 0. Na is 2. Ta is 1. So like this, the same vakyas were written in the Tamil tradition, to overcome the problem that all the consonant sounds are not used in Tamil language. So I'll not bore you with the details. So the Chudamani Ullamudiyan tells us how to calculate the position of the moon using the Vakya system, and various numbers come in these verses, and these numbers are all given in terms of this vowel-based system. Mannan Veedu Shulkulam, Man, Nan, V is 4, Du is 5, Shu is 6, Ku is 5, La is 1. So, and you have to go in the reverse order. So just in 2 verses, they have given the entire method of calculating the position of moon on any day. And it can be summarized here. I don't want to trouble you with that. But it's purely an arithmetic calculation. Usually in astronomy, you have to use the sine table, this, that, all sorts of complicated things. This is a purely arithmetic calculation that you need to do. Of course, there is one point you should realize. This Vakya method for moon is accurate only for Paurnima and Amavasya. For other days, it will have a deviation of half a degree or 1 degree from the true position. But it's very accurate for predicting, therefore, eclipses which occur either on Paurnima or Amavasya. In the 5th century, or end of 4th century, Fahian visited India from China. This is his description of a hospital in the city of Pataliputra, where he is saying that there are houses for dispensing charity and medicine. All the poor and destitute in the country, orphans, widowers, childless men, maimed people and cripples, and all who are diseased to go to these houses and are provided with every kind of help. And the doctors examine their diseases. They get the food and medicines which their cases require and are made to feel at ease. And when they are better, they go away themselves. Meaning, such hospitals were there in India at 399 or 400 of the Common Era when Fahian visited India. And of course, there are descriptions of hospitals in our Charaka Samhita, which is much more ancient, which is 500 before the Common Era. Now let us come to a hospital near Kanchipuram. So this is a place called Tirumukkudal. This is on the Kanchipuram-Chengalpet road, where the Palar and Vegavati and Chayar meet. So this is called Appan Venkateshwara Swami Temple. It was built by Veera Rajendra after Rajendra, about whom you would have heard a lot in the last few days. In around 1063, this temple is constructed with a Veda Patashala supporting 60 scholars and an Atura Shala with 15 beds. Now, there is a very, very long inscription on the wall of the Appan Venkateshwara Swami temple. It's one of the longest inscriptions. one important thing is there was a physician whose annual salary was 90 columns of paddy, one surgeon who received 30 columns of paddy, two people who were fetching herbs of medicine were getting 60 columns of paddy, two nurses who received 30 columns of paddy, and a barber who received. So this is the scale of salary between. So if you go to a hospital today and go to chief surgeon and see what he receives, and the man who stands at the door or whatever, you will know that. And they have made provisions for all the patients there. All the medicines that were used there are written. Most of them you find in the Ashtanga Hridaya Samhita or Yoga Ratnakara. All these medicines are mentioned, how to prepare them, how much should be stored, etc. Okay. Now, this is a temple. This is called the Trimurti temple in Prambanan, Java. It was constructed in the 9th century. Java is in Indonesia. This, of course, all of you would have seen recently, I'm sure. This is the Angkor Wat Vishnu temple, which is the largest temple in the world. And this is in Cambodia. It is constructed in 12th century. And the inside sculptures are all based on our Shilpa Shastras. Of course, the prototypes for them are the local people, but they are all constructed as per the Shilpa Shastras. Andalus is named for Spain in Arabic. There was a scholar called Al-Andalusi. He has written a book in 1068. It's called Book of the Categories of Nations. So he has looked at all the world as known to the scholars of Islam in 1068. And is saying, what are all the specialities of different nations, different civilizations at that time. So he is saying, the kings of China refer to the kings of India as the kings of wisdom. In fact, I had a slide earlier where Eat Singh, who visited India in 700, is talking about how India is called the land of celestial wisdom. And the Chinese emperor is called the divine emperor. And he is saying that Panini's grammar is respected all over from Vietnam to Uzbekistan. And he learned Panini's grammar in Indonesia, what was called Srivijaya at that time. Anyway, so now Al-Andalusi is saying, Indians have made great strides in the study of numbers and geometry. They have acquired immense information and reached the zenith of their knowledge in the knowledge of movement of stars, as well as other mathematical studies. They have surpassed all other people in their knowledge of medical science and the strength of various drugs, the characteristics of compounds and the linguistics, astronomy, mathematics, and medicine were the great sciences of the ancient world. And Indians had an extraordinary capacity, and this knowledge was known all over the world. That is, this capacity of the Indians in all the basic sciences was famous all over the world at 1068. Of course, around the same time, we have Al-Biruni, who comes to India along with Mahatma Muhammad of Ghazni. And even he writes about everything, but his book actually is titled, What is Rational and Irrational About the Knowledge of India. He is coming with the conquerors, and he is writing a book. And of course, he explains how Muhammad destroyed the regions that he conquered, and that the Hindu sciences went far away to Kashmir, Banaras, to which Mahmud of Ghazni could not go. But he also says that Hindus believe that there is no country but theirs, no nation like theirs, no king like theirs, no religion like theirs, no science like theirs. So this was the self-belief in our society at that time. Of course, to believe too much of that may not be right. It leads to a certain arrogance. But anyway, now in the medieval period also Indian sciences went, continued flourishing, this Kerala school which was mentioned. Two names all of you should know. Madhava, who is there around 1350, he discovered what is called infinite series for pi. Pi is the ratio of circumference to diameter of a circle, the sine function, cosine function. He also worked on the what is called the Vakya method. Parameshwara did observations for over 55 years. Nilakantha Somyaji, who is the student of Parameshwara's son, he came up with a new planetary model. I will say something about it in 2-3 minutes. And this continued. A very detailed work on Indian astronomy was written in Malayalam in 1530. That is, Malayalam became such a language of discussion of high science. In fact, all the work of Madhava and Nilakantha are fully explained like a textbook with proofs, examples, etc. So it continued till 18th century. So these are some of the series for pi that Madhava discovered. Many of them were rediscovered in the next 300, 400 years in Europe. And just for your curiosity, here is a series that Ramanujan wrote in 1910. This was used in 1980s to calculate the value of pi for the first time correct to 1 billion places. Now about Nilakantha Somyaji. You see, the difference between what is called the heliocentric system and the geocentric system is the following. You know the 5 planets that all the ancients dealt with were sun, apart from Sun and Moon and Earth, were Mercury, Venus, which their orbit is, from the Sun, their orbit is shorter than the orbit of the Earth. So their orbit is shorter. Then you have Mars, Jupiter and Saturn, whose orbit is outside of the orbit of the Earth. So Mars, Jupiter and Saturn go around the Sun, they go around the Earth also. Whereas Mercury and Venus, so Mercury goes around the Sun in 88 days. So obviously in 88 days, it doesn't go around the Earth. It is carried as we see from the Earth, though it's Earth which may be moving around the Sun. As seen from the Earth, it is Sun who is moving around with respect to the stars. And so Mercury and Venus are carried around the Earth in 365 days, but they go around the Sun in 88 days. Now, the orbit in which they go around the Sun is inclined. Therefore, there is something called a latitude, which tells you how much these planets are away from the plane in which Earth goes around the Sun. That plane is called ecliptic. So what Nilakantha Somyaji is saying is that in 88 days, they complete their orbit and their latitude goes up, comes down, but their longitude doesn't become 360 degrees. They don't go around the Earth. So he is concluding, Tayoho Brahmana Vrittena na bhuhu kabali kriyate tato bahireva sada bhuhu. By the orbit of Mercury and Venus, Earth is not enclosed, engulfed. Earth is always outside of their orbit. And anayoho punaha tadakarshana vishadeva dvadasha rashichu charaha. Due to the attractive property of the Sun, Sun carries them around the Earth. And so you see that they go around the Earth in 365 days, but their displacement above and below the ecliptic is in 88 and 223 days. So this is what he discovers in 1500. And this is more advanced than whatever was known, even for about 110 years. This complete understanding of the actual planetary model came only around 1605 by Kepler. So what Nilakantha Somyaji had gotten in 1500 is an approximate version of the Keplerian model. Anyway, but Nilakantha Somyaji has also talked about the method of science and the importance of what is called pariksha. So he is discussing the point that you take Aryabhata's book, which was written, Nilakantha is in 1500. Aryabhata wrote in 499. So you make calculations as per that, but you see that the observations do not conform to that. So neither the eclipse nor even the grahanas, or the full moon and new moon, they do not follow that. Now the question arises, we all think that Aryabhatta was divinely inspired. All his followers say he was divinely inspired. So how is it possible that for somebody to be divinely inspired, that we do not follow him or we do not take his words as the letter of final truth? So he is explaining that Tasya Kutah Parikshanam, Aryabhatta's work, how can we sort of say we are going to examine it? Because he is divinely inspired, Brahmanaha Sarvagyatvat, etc., etc. You are only being a very naive person. Devata Prasado Mati Vaimalya Hetureva. This divine inspiration allows you to have a more clearer intellect to understand whatever you see. It doesn't reveal to you the final truth of the universe, which is not accessible to us as humans anyway. So, similarly, he is saying, Tasmat Shishya Paramparaya Sarvairvi Parikshanam Kartavyam. And then he says, Tasmat Shishyanam Grahagati Samarthya Padanameva Shastra Prayojanam. So teaching astronomy to students is not to tell them that we have found out the final truth of how stars and planets originate or move. It is to tell the students the method to examine whatever we are explaining to you as the current understanding of the movement of stars or their historical evolution. So whatever science teaches to you is current understanding. Be it in India, be it in America, be it in China, be it in Japan, it will be the current understanding of those people, or if they are working together, if the current understanding of those groups of the tradition of science. So this was the understanding of science, which modern West to some extent came up only in 20th century, when the old Newtonian mechanics was not correct. Theory of relativity came, quantum mechanics came. Till then, it was thought that Newton had discovered the final laws of the universe, the way God had created the universe. That's what all books wrote down. But Indians never claimed that we have understood the way God has created the universe. We have tried to understand the universe with Devata Prasada, with clarity of intellect, the best possible manner that we can by our observations, our understanding, our reasoning, and our past tradition. So these are subjects which keep changing. These are not truths of the universe. These are statements of our understanding of the universe at a particular time for our purposes. And we would be doing it well if we realize the fundamental unity of all creation and the rita of nature, that we do not violate the harmony of different parts of the universe, including ourselves. So this was the kind of understanding of Indian tradition of science. Okay, so all this great thing persisted till 18th century. I'll take about 15 more minutes, please excuse me. So, this is an analysis of how much every country's industrial production or manufacturing, not agricultural production, but of artisan, weaving, metal crafts, sort of oils, substances, whatever the country produced from 1750 to current. So this analysis was done in 1980 by a Belgian scholar. So as you can see, India and China produced more than half of world's manufacturing output in 1750, and Europe produced about 1/4 at that time. Now, this is the start of the Western colonization of India and dominance of China, which increases from about 1820 onwards. So you see the steep graph after 1830 in China. You see the steep graph in India. And this continues. The lowest point maybe somewhere here, 1913. And at around the time of independence, India had a share of 1.7% of the world's manufacturing. USA and Europe had about 86%. China was reduced to 2.3%. Unfortunately, even now, we have increased substantially, nearly doubled, but we are at 2.9%. But our neighbor, you can see the kind of progress it has made with concentration on manufacturing. And you can see many other countries. England had gone up to 19 at the height of colonial rule, has come down to 1.8%. So what constituted this production? Textiles was one major thing, and India produced about 1/4 of the world's textile output. But the trade in textiles was around 1/3 of all the textile trade done in the world. All the European countries came to India, picked up our cloth and sold it for various purposes in South America, Africa, even in their own countries. Now I will say in the last part something about what do we really know how India was ruled at the grassroots level, at the level of a grama, a village, prior to British rule. Now we can get some idea of what should be the political system that is adopted in the country by looking at all our Dharma Shastras, Artha Shastra, Niti Shastra. We also get some idea by looking at the large number of inscriptions, like that inscription I told you about, the Veera Rajendra's inscription in Tirumukkudal. But there is some detailed data from what is called the village Kanakku Pillai's account, which the British collected at the beginning of their rule. When the British came to this region, Nawab of Harkat gave this Chengalpet region as a Jagir. And they collected from each village, the village Kanakku Pillai's accountant of that village. And they seem to be extraordinarily informative about each village. And so, they give a very different picture of our India than what we read normally in our history books, or they give a very different picture of India than what we even seem to think from our own understanding. So 2 of these villages we have analyzed, and Piriye was very happy with this book when he saw, and he blessed it with various Ashirvadam. So these are palm leaf like this. This is actually 4 parts of the single palm leaf. It's a long palm leaf, uncut. So there are several revenue records like this. Some of them are in Tanjavur. Some of them are in the Government Oriental Manuscripts Library, Madras. And it uses a script which is current Tamil script, but with lot of symbols. Symbols for measures, symbols for grains, shortcuts for descriptions. So this is 1762 varsham, Nandana varsham, October madam, 7 தேதி, புரட்டாசி மாதம் 22 தேதி, இன்ஜினியர் பாரனிட்டு ராஜஸ்ரீ செங்கல்வராயன் முதலியார் அவர்களுக்கு திட்டப்படிக்கு வகை 7, 24 அடி கோலால் குழி 100க்கு காணி 1 நஞ்சை காணி 100, புஞ்சை காணி 672 ஆக காணி 500, this is 472 ஆக காணி 572க்கு வயணம், etc. It goes like that. So this is similar to the language of the script of inscriptions with more symbols. Now one village, this Ullavur, is just opposite Tirumukkudal on the other side of Pala. So this is a summary of the land data. The land data runs over pages. But important is the kind of water bodies that it is showing. There are 4, 2 Tangal, 2 Kulam, 14 Kuttai, 2 Madu, this one village has. So if you see an older survey of India map, older meaning this in 1950s, this is the Tenneri. Ulavur is somewhere here. This is the Changalpet Kanchipuram road. Ulavur is here. And basically water from Tenneri and Palar, south below, it doesn't come in this map. But you see all these blue things are the water bodies, the Aries, Tangals. So this is a picture of Thirumukudal, that is the Palesivaram temple. This is the, I think this is Palar only, near the Chayar meeting point. This is Tenneri. From here it really looks Brahmandam. This is the Kalangal, this is the system of drawing water from there. And these are two of the Aries. And this is the Maduva. Now, for whole of Changalpet also, for 2000 villages, 1900 villages, the Tangals, Kulam, Kuttais, etc. formed about 13% of the land. And so, it is this system we have sort of neglected. And I'll just tell you one example of when a survey was made in modern times. This is in the old Mysore state, in 1890s. Old Mysore state means without the northern part. So old Mysore state had 29,500 square miles. It had 38,000 of these areas, which are called Kere in Kannada. And this Major Sankey, who surveyed this, he says, these Keres are not individual entities. There is an overflow, what is called the Weir, that's the Kalangal. And they go to a next area or to a river or finally to the sea, of course. So it is this system of areas, and the area is not like a column. It is not enclosed four sides. Depending on the land's movement, you bund it at one point, at one side. The other side is the natural sort of slope of the land takes care of it. It's not a dugout. So that is the level to which our people had observed the topography of the land. This is not just in Tamil Nadu or in Karnataka or in Andhra. It's there in Gujarat, it's there in Madhya Pradesh, it's there in Rajasthan also. And it required enormous coordination between all the localities to maintain this connected system of tanks. And what Sankey is saying is that I cannot add one more area. The system will get upset. I cannot remove one area. The connectivity of the system will get lost. So this is as it would have been in 1850. It is not so today. And it is based upon the principle that you don't reorganize nature, but you see the natural flow of rain and water and go along with it and take whatever you can take in your locality, leave the rest to flow on. That's a very different attitude to universe than that is characterized by the technology and science of many other civilizations, which think that they have a special responsibility to control nature, reorganize nature only for humankind's benefit and ultimately for their own benefit. So in this Ullavur, the productivity was about 4 tons per hectare, which is fairly high. And in this whole region, the average productivity was about 3 tons per hectare. This is for 1,498 villages. And today, the average productivity of food grains in India is just around 2 tons per hectare, whole of India. But more than that, at that time, per household, there was about 5 tons, which means 5,000 kilograms. So if a house of 5 households, 5 persons, it's 1 ton per person. Today, India's production is only about 200 kilograms per person or 1 ton per household. So this is the decrease in agriculture productivity, and this has not changed substantially from our independence. It was much lower. It was 150 kilograms per person, which is what we have discussed in that Annam Bahukurvita book, which was blessed by the Periyava. And it has now risen beyond 200 kilograms per person. World average is somewhere around 270, 280 kilograms. China, America, such countries will have more than 400, 700 kilograms per person. That is what is called affluence. Animals will have plenty to eat. And we have food for everybody in plenty. Now, what was the self-governing nature? We all know that these villages were thought of as republics, etc. So how were they republics? The accounts, these palm leaf accounts, give a detailed description of what is done to the produce. So a portion of the produce is shared at various stages. So first one is before threshing. So in the Kalamedliye, before threshing the grain to separate the chaff from the grain, a portion is given that is called Swatantram. And then there is one more Swatantram after the grain is threshed but not measured. Alavukku minne oru Swatantram, Kalamedle Kalamadikittukku minne oru Swatantram. Then after measuring, there is something called merai. So all these add up to about 30% of the gross produce. Actually, what is called Sutantram is before measuring. It doesn't even come in the measured accounts. That 4 tons per hectare is without taking into account the Sutantrams. And the Sutantrams are mentioned in 15th, 14th century inscriptions also. So about 1/3 of the produce is shared that way. And apart from that, 1/4 of the cultivated lands were assigned as manyam. Manyam doesn't mean that the land becomes the property of the person to whom it is assigned. Only the revenue that that land pays, vari, and the nelathukku undana vari, which it may be paying to a higher authority, that is assigned to a carpenter or a temple or a pujari or a kambakatti who takes care of irrigation, things like that. So it was this system that the village itself did this. So in this Ullavur, if you see the list of people who are having Swatantrams, the percentage share is given. So it reads like about 30-40 individuals or institutions get mentioned in this. Peliyar Kovil, Perumal Kovil, Amman Kovil, Dharmaraja Kovil, Vishnu Brahmana, Kovil Parcharaka, Idayan, Kudumi, Kusavan, Tannir Kari, Panisavan, Vannan, Navitan, Bolikaran, Valluvan, goes on. The cultivator servants, Fakir, Kaniyachikaras, Palegarar, Kamadar, Tattan, Tamil Vadyar, Kanakapillai, Adavakaran. So the total Swatantrams come up to 8% in Ullavur, and they correspond to about 81 tons of grain, given that average production. Then these merais. Merais are like this, 11.8%, one merai. Another set of merais are 4%, all of the produce. The Swatantrams are before measuring. This is after measuring. So the people who helped in cultivation get 4%. 4 outside temples get a share. Madhuraja Swami Kovil in Kanchipuram, Vedagirishwar Kovil in Thirukkalkundram, where this Pakshitirtham. Marudeshwarar and Patalati Narsimhar Kovils are on opposite sides of Chengalpet, Chennai Road. Thirukachiyur and Singaperumal Kovil. And the village Kovils, Kanungo Deshmukh are the revenue officers. Maintenance of the area has 0.3%. And then of course Palaikarar, Kanakapillai, Sharaf is the money changer, and the Kamalar have the share in it. So in all, 30% of the produce is shared between local and regional individuals, institutions, who perform all the tasks, administrative, accounting, culture, religion, education, artisanal production, weaving, everything is taken care of. And today, if you look at Government of India budget, it's also something like 30% of the annual revenue is what is sort of put, meaning annual produce, gross produce, is what goes as the budget. So these are the 4 temples: Varadaraja temple, Pakshi Tirtham, this I think Singaperumal, this is the Marundishwarar Kovil. So, if you take the average of several villages, the total Merai and Swatantram come to 27%. 17% is for institutions and individuals inside the village, 10% for those which are beyond the village. This was a network thing. They were not republics which were isolated, insular, etc., etc. They were part of the village, created the larger polity. The larger polity created the much larger polity. It was bottom upwards, the control went of resources. And this you will find if you read our ancient inscriptions more carefully. The same principles. So, just a small point. Excuse me. The Kanchipuram Varadaraja Swami temple got a share of about 0.5% of produce from 1,265 gramas. And Singaperumal Kovil Tirukachur from 450, Sri Perumbudur Kovil 397, Thirukkalikundam 338, and there is a Kumbakonam Chikkodeyar. And Kumbakonam Chikkodeyar is the Kanchi Kamakoti Matam, which had gone to Kumbakonam in 18th century, because around Ekamereshwar temple where the Matam was located, you had a unnecessary interference and they were welcome in Tanjavur. So they have a share from about 310 localities, about 0.5%. So this was the level of, and many Muslim institutions were also included, because at that time the Nawab of Arcot was ruling in 1767 when all this data is. So all that he could do was add couple of Muslim sort of institutions, Santom, Pirzada, Kovalam Dargah, to the other things that already existed. So this was the system that the British changed in about 30 years to something very different, which is not very different from the system that we are seeing even today. So this polity was best understood by Mahatma Gandhi. Just before our constitution was written, he wrote an article on independence, where he's saying independence must begin at the bottom. Every village should be a republic, that every village has to be self-sustained, etc., etc. And independence does not exclude mutual dependence. In this structure, composed of innumerable villages, there will be ever widening, never ascending circles. So he said that this அரசியல் அமைப்பு ஓஷியானிக் சர்க்கிள்ஸ், கடல்ல அலைகள் வருது அந்த மாதிரி இருக்கணும்னு. That the village is the center, around that is the larger region, around that is the much larger region. Nothing is above the other. They are all mutually supporting each other. That the village creates the grama creates the larger polity. This was the kind of model of the political system that we see in 18th century. So now I just go to contemporary situation. I'll skip all this. So, okay, till 18th century, this was all functional. But what is our situation today? We are all talking of Indian knowledge system. So what is this Indian knowledge system? So as I said, knowledge of all this that I have talked about is Bharatiya Jnana Parampara. But where do we get this knowledge? So what are the sources of this? First is, of course, manuscripts and books published from manuscripts. There seem to be a very large number of manuscripts. Some people say 10 million, some people say 5 million. Okay, we can have even 3 million. We think a large number are outside India. That is not true. About 95 to 98% of them are in India only. Only about 2%. Say if it is 3 million, about 6 lakhs may be outside. About 85% or 80% are in Sanskrit, but 20% of them, this does not include the kind of village accounts I mentioned. These are all the manuscripts which are listed in catalogs of various libraries. So that is what is this 3 million, etc. There are many, many more records. Now, maybe we have published 2 to 3 lakh books from the older manuscripts. Our library is said to contain 50,000 books in Sanskrit. But even those, just as these manuscripts are not read, even those books are not fully read and digested. For instance, this Neelakanta's planetary model that I was explaining to you was in a book that was published in 1950. But till 1990, we did not read that book and trying to understand what is the technical content of the book. Neelakanta's Aryabhatiya Bhashya and Neelakanta's Tantra Sangraha were published in 1950s, and they contain very beautiful description of a different planetary model similar to Kepler's model. So, Kepler's model is the beginning of modern science. But they were worked out by Neelakanta from a very different position. The heliocentric model was based upon the debate whether sun should be at the center of the universe or earth should be at the center of the universe. We did not debate that question. We tried to understand the actual motion of planets as seen from the earth. And we also knew, Aryabhatta had written in 499 AD, that just as someone who is moving in a ship sees the banks moving in the opposite direction, movement is relative to the observer. Anuloma gatihi naustha pashyat achalam vilomagam yadvat achalani cha bhani samaparyagani lankaya. This in Aryabhatiya, one of the verses. So, publishing a book does not mean that we know the knowledge of it in relation to contemporary knowledge or modern Western knowledge, or even in relation to what the Greeks knew, what was known in Islamic world, what was known in Chinese world. Because till about 1800, there were several sciences, several technologies. There was Chinese, there was the Islamic one in West Asia, there was the European one, which was the successor of the ancient Babylonian and Greek ones. There was the Indian one. Of course, many other civilizations, Mayans, had their own technology and science. So all these were based on their own parampara. What the West has done is push all this out and just put on you their parampara as if that's the only parampara of knowledge. And since we do not know about our parampara, we also believe. And that is the problem. So for that we have to go back to these sources, including the published ones. And there are inscriptions. And this again, over 1 lakh of them have been collected, but only about 10 to 15% has been published. Say the Tirupati Devasthanam has published all its inscriptions. Karnataka Mysore Rajyam published all their inscriptions with translation. But 90% of our inscriptions are unpublished. We have only some small summaries that appear in what is called the Annual Review of Epigraphy. Third is what are called archival records. These are the kind of records on which the entire work of Dharampalji was based. The 18th century records I am talking of, their English summaries are there in the Tamil Nadu State Archives, from which Dharampalji first got this survey of the Chengalpet villages, which we are sort of studying in, which I discussed. There are so many records, correspondences of administrators, observers, data on education system, data on science, technology. Then of course there are material objects, iron pillar, dam, forts, old cities, temples. We need to analyze all of them, study all of them. Then of course, living practices amongst our people. Even today I think 4 or 5% of India practice weaving of one kind or the other. People used to know metal craft, even making of steel, till about 30, 40 years ago. There will still be perhaps people who know that. So, living practices. And finally, what may be called the modern knowledge about them. That is what the Europeans first studied and wrote books. Say Max Muller's translation of Rig Veda will come here. Or even our own work we are doing in modern times will come. So there's a large number of books and articles, but these are the sources. These are modern studies. We should separate source from modern study, because any modern study, we have to check it against the source from which it has come. And often they only give opinions rather than textual reference. So this is the corpus, and it's a challenge before us to, and why do we need this? We need this because we are starting as if we were in a blank slate, taking some knowledge, some technique from somewhere, whose origin we don't know, whose cultural background we don't know, whose effects we don't know, whose purposes we don't know. We not only take all this, we even take the institutional mechanism of how it is produced or how it is taught. So all this has to change. We need to start from the base of what we knew and what we continue to know in several disciplines like Sahitya, Darshana, Gandharva Veda, etc. We know a lot about our past, but we don't pay full attention to the actual sources, even when we know about them. So that full attention we have to pay back. We have to know the same disciplines which are in continuity. Our food practices, they continue from ancient times. But we don't read Bhojana Kutuhala or whatever are other books of Ayurveda. So it is from this base that we build up. So it doesn't mean that modern knowledge has to be banished, but that has to be re-understood from the perspective. So all practitioners of India will have to be taught to study, research on the one hand. All students of India will have to be taught the summary substance of all disciplines that India developed from times immemorial. And that is the only way that we can have a creative Indian genius flourishing in modern times. We will have an India which will be what we call knowledge superpower or whatever. We don't need to become knowledge superpower. We need to become a really knowledgeable society about ourselves. And I'm very thankful to Kanchi University for giving me this opportunity. I bow at the feet of Paramacharya, Jayendra Saraswatigal and Vijayendra Saraswati Swamigal and the current Acharya. Thank you.
ஐஐடிஸில் படிக்கிற ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸுக்கு பெரிய பெரிய பேக்கேஜஸ் எல்லாமே நல்ல பேர் இதனால் வருதுன்னா 2 hours கிளாஸ் இருந்தாலும் சைலண்ட்டாக இருப்பாங்க. ரைட்.
Thank you very much, sir, for your eye-opening lecture. Actually, it is one of the, what shall I say, a lifetime memorable lectures what we had today. And if I am not wrong, you have tried to do the, a thing of magician's act, what we call it in Hindi, Gagar mein Sagar bharna. Gagar means a small pot, Sagar means the ocean. To keep the ocean in that small pot, it's a kind of miraculous job which you have done, meticulously well, I think. Because you covered almost all the, parts of Indian knowledge systems or Indian knowledge traditions. You made that tradition word very beautifully, sir, because generally now we are running with the term Indian knowledge systems. But you followed that tradition. Thank you very much for this new phrase. And be it polity, be it physics, be it mathematics, be it manuscriptology, be it economics, be it the self-sustenance, be it the governance, be it seems like a complete package of Indian knowledge traditions which we have to study, especially the present generation, whatever the branch of knowledge they are into. Like you had the knowledge of commerce and money matters, financial things, not only that, language, and you proved that Indian knowledge systems is not a kind of independent sectors. No, it's a kind of blended sector. It's everything is interrelated and everything is parashpara ashrita. And there, sir, there is a complete, I could see a complete, drishti and laukika prayojana as well as the parampara. The drishti, the need of the hour is to become Indian. Our, the point of view what we study the education is the drishti. And you covered that one very well, and you sustained that parampara knowledge will thing also, and you connected this knowledge to the laukika prayojana as well. What we can learn for the present society, what we can do for the present, that also you covered, sir. And I request all of the gathering to give him a big applause for this wonderful lecture. And as the Indian knowledge systems divisions Dhyaya Vakya says, Bhadrayam Sumatau Yatema. There is a richa, there is a rik called in Rigveda, Bhadrayam Sumatau Yatema. We are trying to do something. We are going for research, and let us strive for the wisdom that leads to the welfare of all. That is the meaning of this Rigveda Vakyam. And sir, your lecture covered this portion very well, I think. And I welcome all the students who are sitting here, hopefully listening to the lecture. If you have any queries, if you have any questions, if you have any kind of jigyasa to know something, you are free to ask. Starting from the Department of Sanskrit, starting from the Department of Physics, if I am not wrong, physics students are also here. Most of the portions are covered in physics as well, because Sir is basically a physics professor. And other branches of knowledge are also here, like commerce people are here, MBA people are here, MCA or BCA, whatever it is. Kindly ask if you have any queries, and you are free to ask. This is the time you have to utilize to spend the time with the real scholars. Session is open for.
They can give their comments.
Yes, sir.
Not just questions.
And your take, or what are you going to study?
What you have understood from this lecture, what research areas you find out, you can speak very well. So many ideas sir has given. The India's greatness, the Bharat greatness, the productivity, manufacturing, எவ்வளோ பெருசாக இருந்தது என்றது எல்லாமே சொல்லிட்டார். So water bodies connection and Kanchipuram, even recently in Man Ki Baat program, Prime Minister Narendra Modi sir mentioned about the Uttara Merur inscription.
Vaikunta Vasar Perumal Kovil.
So what you have observed, அது யாராவது சொன்னால் that will be good.
Sir, I have a...
Please. Yes.
Ask.
Sir, first of all, I would like to thank you so much, sir, because நான் தமிழ்லேயே சொல்கிறேன், ஏன்னா அதான் எனக்கு கம்ஃபர்டபுளாக இருக்கு இன்னும். ஃபஸ்ட்டு எனக்கு இவ்வளோ விஷயம் இருக்குன்னே தெரியாது. காஞ்சிபுரத்தில் ஏதோ ஒரு கிராமத்தில் இவ்வளோ அக்கௌண்ட்ஸை மெயின்டைன் பண்ணியிருக்காங்கன்னா, அப்போது ஒவ்வொரு கிராமத்துலையும் இதே மாதிரி தான் மெயின்டைன் பண்ணியிருப்பாங்க. அப்போது அவ்வளோ பர்ஃபெக்டாக ஒரு 200 years பிஃபோர் வரைக்கும் இருந்திருக்கு அப்படின்னா, கண்டிப்பாக நம்மளாலேயும் இப்போ அதை கொண்டு வர முடியும். ஏதோ ஒரு கிராமத்தில் இருக்குன்னா இந்த மாதிரி நிறையா இடத்துல இருக்கும். அங்கே எங்களோட ஒர்க்ஸ் நாங்கள் வந்து கிரந்தா கற்றுக்குறோம் சார். ஸோ அதனால் அது எங்களுக்கு அது ரொம்ப யூஸ்ஃபுல்லாக இருக்குது. இன்னும் நாங்களும் இந்த மாதிரி நல்லா படிக்கணும் அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு எங்களுக்கு நல்லா இன்ஸ்பைரிங்காக இருக்குது. தேங்க்யூ ஸோ மச் சார். அதே மாதிரி வாட்டர் பாடிஸை பற்றி அவ்வளோ சொன்னீங்க. இப்போ அது நான் காஞ்சிபுரத்துலேருந்து நான் சிதம்பரத்துலேருந்து இங்கே வருவேன் சார். பார்க்கும்போது பார்த்தா அவ்வளோ ஒன்றும் தண்ணி இருக்கிற மாதிரியே எனக்கு தெரியவே இல்லை இங்கே. ஆனால் நீங்கள் அந்த போட்டிருக்க அந்த இது பார்க்கும்போது எங்கடா இந்த தண்ணிலாம் போச்சு அப்படின்ற மாதிரி இருக்குது சார். ஸோ மறுபடியும் அதெல்லாம் கொண்டு வரதுக்காக எல்லோரும் சேர்ந்து கொண்டு வருவோம் சார். தேங்க்யூ சார். தேங்க்யூ ஃபார் யுவர் வண்டர்ஃபுல் ஸ்பீச் சார்.
ரொம்ப நன்றி. இதில் முக்கியமாக அவங்க சொன்ன மாதிரி நமக்கு 200 வருஷம் என்ன இப்படி இருந்ததுன்னு நாம் இன்னைக்கு ஊழ பண்ண முடியாதுன்னு சொல்கிறீங்க. ஆனால் ஒரு அளவுக்கு நாம் கூர்ந்து பார்த்தோன்னா, இப்போ நான் குன்றத்தூர்லேருந்து வரேன், அது இப்போ சென்னையோட ஒரு பகுதி ஆகிடுது. அங்கே ஒரு பெரிய ஏரி இருக்குது, பாலராவாயர் ஏரின்னு. நம்ம 18ஆம் நூற்றாண்டு கணக்கில் அது 25 ஏக்கர் இருந்தது. இன்றைக்கி ஒரு 10 ஏக்கர் அளவில் இருக்குது. இதை பற்றி நிறைய அந்த கிராமத்து ஜனங்களையே பேசி, இதை உண்டாக்கினது பாலராவாயர் என்றவர் சேக்கிழாரோட தம்பி. இந்த சேக்கிழார் என்றவர் குன்றத்தூரில் தான் அவர் பிறந்தார். அவர் அங்கே மந்திரியாக இருந்தார் தஞ்சாவூரில். அப்புறம் குன்றத்தூரில் அவர் நாகேஸ்வர சுவாமியோட கோவில் அங்கே கும்பகோணத்தில் இருக்கிறது அவர் இஷ்ட தெய்வம். இங்கே அவர் இங்கே நாகேஸ்வர சுவாமியோட கோவில் உண்டாக்கினார். அவர் தம்பி பாலராவாயர் தான் இந்த குளத்தை இந்த ஏரியை. ஸோ இப்போ அந்த ஏரியை புதுப்பித்து ஒரு அளவுக்கு நல்ல ஏரியா மாற்றிருக்காங்க. நம்ம கணக்கில் இருந்த இன்னொரு 2-3 குளங்கள் ஏரி கூட சிலது அது சுத்தோலம் கன்ஸ்ட்ரக்ஷன்ஸ் எல்லாம் வந்தால் கூட இப்போ கூட இருக்குது. ஆனால் ஒன்லேருந்து தண்ணியை நம்ம இன்னொன்றுக்கு போகிற சிஸ்டம் எல்லாம் அது போய் செதிந்து போனதால் நம்ம இன்றைக்கி அதை யூஸ் பண்ண முடியல. அந்த குன்றத்தூர் முருகன் பின்னே இருக்கிற கோவில் குளம் கூட குளம் அப்படியே இருக்குது, ஆனால் அதில் தண்ணி சேர்க்கிறது கிடையாது. ஸோ இந்த மாதிரி இருக்குது நிறைய ஃபிசிக்கல். இப்போ அன்றைக்கி இருந்த கோவில்கள் எல்லாம் இன்றைக்கும் இருக்குது. அதை விட இன்னும் ஜாஸ்தி அளவில் கூட சில இடங்களில் நிறையா கோவில்கள் இருக்குது. ஆனால் அதோட பராமரிப்பு அன்னைய அளவில் நாம் பண்ண முடியல. இன்றைக்கி நாம் அன்னைய அளவில் நாம் இன்றைக்கி பண்ண முடியாமல் இருக்குது. அதை பற்றி நாம் தெரிஞ்சுக்காமல் இருக்குது. அந்த ஊரில் இருக்கிறவங்களுக்கே சேக்கிழார் என்ன செஞ்சார்ன்றது தெரியாது, பெரிய புராணம்னு என்னான்னு தெரியாது. அந்த 63 நாயன்மாரோட அந்த சிலைகளும் அந்த கந்தலீஸ்வரர் கோவிலில் இருக்குது. சேக்கிழார் ஒரு கார்னரில் அவரையும் ஒரு நாயன்மாரை சேர்த்து வச்சுருக்கா. ஸோ இது எல்லாம் இருக்குது. நாம் அந்த மெமரியை ரிவைவ் பண்ணேன்னா ஜாம்பவான் ஹனுமாருக்கு சொன்ன மாதிரி நாம் அந்த மெமரியை ரிவைவ் பண்ணேன்னா ஹனுமார் மாதிரி நாம் கூட இன்றைக்கி செயல்படலான்னு தோணுது. வணக்கம்.
இன்னும் யாராவது ஏதாவது சொன்னால், இப்போது தமிழில் இந்த நம்பர்ஸ் எப்படி யூஸ் பண்ணியிருக்காங்க என்றது அது ஒரு சார் ரொம்ப அழகான சின்ன பிரின்சிபலாக. இப்போ நீங்கள் இதெல்லாமே தெரிஞ்சுக்கிட்டால் தான் நம்ம பழைய ஹிஸ்ட்ரி என்ன, நம்ம எவ்வளோ பெருமையாக வாழ்க்கோம்ன்றது கண்டுபிடிக்க முடியும். எத்தனை இன்ஸ்கிரிப்ஷன்ஸ் இருக்குது, எல்லாமே எவ்வளோ ஹிஸ்ட்ரி இருக்குது, அதெல்லாமே தெரிஞ்சுக்கணும். அதுக்கு தான் இப்போ நம்ம யூனிவர்சிட்டியில் மேனுஸ்கிரிப்ட்ஸை பற்றி சார் சொன்னார். 85% ஆஃப் மேனுஸ்கிரிப்ட்ஸ் ஆர் இன் சம்ஸ்கிருத். அது நீங்கள் பாருங்க, தெரிஞ்சுக்கோங்க. நிறைய ஒர்க் பண்ணுறோம். இப்போ ரீசெண்டாக நம்ம இன்ஸ்கிரிப்ஷன்ஸ் பற்றி கூட நிறைய ஒர்க் பண்ணுறதுக்கு இப்போ ப்ரப்போசல் கொடுத்துருக்கோம். இதெல்லாமே நம்ம பண்ண வேண்டி இருக்குது. ஃபிசிக்ஸ், இப்போ அந்த வேதிக் மேத்தமெட்டிக்ஸ் நீங்கள் படித்தா, வேதிக் மேத்தமெட்டிக்ஸ் நீங்கள் இவ்வளோ ஒரு பெரிய பேப்பர் ஒரு ப்ராப்ளம் சால்வ் பண்ணணும்னா இவ்வளோ பெரிய எக்ஸர்சைஸ் ஒரு ஃபுல் பேஜ் எழுத தேவையில்லை. மைண்டில் அந்த பிரின்சிபல் இருக்கும். அது வச்சுக்கிட்டு நீங்கள் எவ்வளோ பெரிய கணக்கு ஆனாலும் போடலாம். கேல்குலேட்டர் தேவையில்லை, ஒன்றுமே தேவையில்லை. இந்த மாதிரி நிறைய விஷயம் இருக்குது. பேசிண்டே இருந்தால் டைமே போயிடும் தவிர கற்றுக்கிறதுக்கு ட்ரை பண்ணணும். இன்னும் கர்நாடிக் மியூசிக் பற்றி எவ்வளோ இருக்குது, சந்தசாஸ்திரம் பற்றி எவ்வளோ இருக்குது. சார் நீங்கள் எல்லாமே ஒரு 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 ப்ராஜெக்டோ ஒரு ஆர்டிக்கலில் சம்திங் ஒரு பேப்பர் சப்மிட் பண்ணலாம். ஜீரோ, வாட் இஸ் ஜீரோ, யூ ட்ரை டு ஃபைண்ட் அபவுட் வாட் இஸ் தி ஜீரோ. இந்தியன்ஸ் இன்வென்ட் பண்ணியிருக்காங்க ஜீரோ. பட் என்ன அது சும்மா நம்ம சொல்லிண்டே போனால் போகாது. யூ மஸ்ட் அண்டர்ஸ்டாண்ட் வாட் இஸ் ஜீரோ, ஹவு தி ஷேப், அந்த சிம்பல் எப்படி வந்தது, அது வேல்யூ எப்படி வந்தது, ஆரியப்பட்டர் என்ன சொன்னார், அது இந்தியனுடைய பெருமை என்னன்றது நீங்கள் எல்லாமே புரிஞ்சுக்கிட்டு நீங்கள் ஒரு பேப்பர் சப்மிட் பண்ணலாம். இந்த மாதிரி நிறைய விஷயம் இருக்குது. சார் சொன்னார், இந்த வாட்டர் பாடிஸ், இத்தனை வாட்டர் பாடிஸ் இருக்கும்போது ஒன்று எடுத்தாச்சுன்னாவும் முடியாதா, இன்னொன்று புதுசாக பண்ணாலும் முடியாதா? எப்படி இதெல்லாமே கால்குலேட் பண்ணுறாங்க அந்த காலத்தில் பாருங்கள். எவ்வளவு விஷயம் இருக்குது. அதனால் நீங்கள் தெரிஞ்சுக்கோங்க. இன்னும் ஏதாவது சொல்ல விரும்பினா பாய்ஸ் சைடு ஏதாவது சொல்லுங்க. கொஞ்சம் லாங்குவேஜ் பற்றி தமிழில் கிரந்தா ஸ்கிரிப்ட்ன்றது ஒன்று இருந்தது. இப்போ இல்லை, இது நிறைய பேருக்கு தெரியாது. ஒரு ஸ்கிரிப்டே கண்டுபிடிச்சிருக்காங்க இங்கே. அந்த ஸ்கிரிப்டில் தான் நிறைய இன்ஸ்கிரிப்ஷன்ஸ் அது எல்லாமே ஓலைச்சுவடிகள் எல்லாமே இருக்குது. நாங்கள் சர்வே பண்ணால் இங்கே 10 வருஷம் முன்னால் சர்வே பண்ணால் ஒரு காஞ்சிபுரம் டிஸ்ட்ரிக்ட் சரௌண்டிங்ஸ்லயே 60,000 ஓலைச்சுவடிகள் வீட்டுக்குள்ளேயும் ஆதீனத்துக்குள்ளேயும் மட்டத்துக்குள்ளேயும் டெம்பிள்ஸுக்குள்ளேயும் இருக்குது. இதெல்லாமே நம்ம இப்போது இது சேவ் பண்ணலன்னா எல்லாம் போயிடும். ஸோ மை டியர் ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸ், தெரிஞ்சுக்கோங்க, நம்ம நாட்டுக்கு ஏதாவது நம்ம பண்ணி தான் ஆகணும். இதான் கரெக்ட் டைம். நீங்கள் ஏதாவது பண்ணால் ரெகக்னைஸ் பண்ணுற மாதிரி இப்போ சுச்சுவேஷன் வந்தது. தட்ஸ் வாட். முன்னால் என்ன பண்ணாலும் அது இல்லை, இப்போ வருது அந்த சுச்சுவேஷன் வந்தது. எனிபடி வாண்ட்ஸ் டு டெல் எனிதிங்? சார், சுரேஷ் சார். எஸ் ப்ளீஸ்.
ப்ளீஸ் சார், ப்ளீஸ்.
Namaskaram. I think it's an exceptional insights into the Indian knowledge systems. என்னோட கொஷின் என்னென்னா, நீங்கள் காமிச்சிங்க எப்படி இந்த கெப்லரோடது நம்ம முன்னாடியே பண்ணியிருந்தாங்க அது மாதிரி. இப்போ now there may be a lot of unsolved science and math related issues may be there. If a science or math students or Ayurveda கூட நம்ம பேசியிருந்தோம். Ayurveda students, how they can do research based on the Ayurveda manuscripts to see what are the solutions for various health issues or ailments, how they can draw knowledge from the Indian knowledge system, they can make it available for the public. அது மாதிரி பேரா பண்ணணும்னா how do they really approach? Suppose there is a problem, could be civil engineering related, because we have mastered how to build a network of lakes and ponds and all. Obviously Cholaperiyilu irundirukku, ingiyum irundirukku, so everywhere. இதே மாதிரி there could be a lot of contemporary issues which are grappling with in the today's situation. Could be healthcare, could be physics and civil related. Where do people go? I mean, so there could be a problem. I mean, like Sir Sonamari, it could be a great opportunity to build a research and deep dive into our history. And there could be answers there which we don't know. We are still grappling with it. How do students or research scholars can access that knowledge? Thank you.
Sir, first step is to know what we did. And that is, as I said, quite a bit of information is available. Some information has been analyzed. Some texts have been published. Some texts have been studied by modern scholars. So, if new research has to be done, one has to know all that in any domain. But certain misconceptions we should give up. That Nilakantha was not thinking of wanting to do what Kepler was doing. Or Vaisheshika Sutras of Kannada, they were not thinking of discovering Newton's laws of motion. They were working with a different world view, and they were able to get all this. So in that world view, these theories do not have such high place. Lot of detailed observation and systematization has a higher place. So the science of Ayurveda recognizes that even cowherds, the forest dwellers, they know much more about medical drugs. So for Ayurveda, it says the world is the teacher of the Vaidya. So we go with that idea, not that our current theory of the world is the arbiter on everything. So this was a working science. This was a working astronomy. In 18th century, in Pondicherry, when Lejeantil came, he found one astronomer, asked him to calculate an eclipse. He was able to calculate it as well as what Lejeantil knew in around 1770. He was a famous astronomer from France. But lot of new knowledge has been accumulated in the world with its own purpose by modern Western world and today by all other countries also. So first we have to realize, when we understand research in Ayurveda, it cannot be merely to look up a molecule that substance that herb contains. We should look at it. Ayurveda works in a working living body, not on animals or something else, or even on them it could work. But what I'm saying is that you have to have good understanding of the way Ayurveda works. It has its own system of how to discover new drugs, how to test them, and how to diagnose a disease. All these are highly developed science which has been working in this society. So the first priority would be to know the methodology in which we worked, and not the methodology from which modern discoverers or modern theories are working. So if we do that, then there is no problem in integrating more things or engaging and adopting more things of any system of knowledge which will be suitable, and we can still continue to practice many of the modern processes for their own sake and ancient processes for their own sake. We can do ancient calculations, we can do modern calculations. Everybody doesn't need to work on computer. There were individuals who were brighter than computers who could do things. So all this is possible if we have first respect for our knowledge. We know that it has its own system of working, purpose, and its own moral values. All that if we respect, we will be able to update it to today. And one simple example is in China. They have a system of traditional medicine, they have a system of modern medicine. And like us, they also went through a lot of problems in 19th century. In fact, they call it a dark century. So there, this acupuncture, which now whole of West recognizes, it was banned in China by these colonial powers. And in 1930s, the traditional system of medicine of China was banned by the Kuomintang government. So even in India, from 1840 onwards, Indian systems of medicine, those doctors were not recognized for any public purposes, including government. But in the constitution of independent China, they included traditional Chinese medicine, which they valued, said that this will be one of the systems which will be used by the Chinese society and government at every level, along with the modern medical systems. And the way they worked out was, every modern medical student learning modern Western medicine will have 1-year course on traditional Chinese medicine. Every student who studies traditional Chinese medicine, that was independent, that was not a part of the modern university. There were separate modern universities for traditional Chinese, there are today. Very high research institutes are there. They study something of modern medicine also. And every hospital will have a separate wing of traditional Chinese medicine. And the patients are free to go. And the doctors can mutually consult. In what are called nationally important drugs, 1/3 of them are from the traditional Chinese herbaria. The traditional Chinese medicines import to the rest of the world is in, I think today it may be more than $100 billion. It used to be about $50 billion 10 years ago. So these are the kinds of, when you really, and the modern Western medicinal practitioners in China do not argue against traditional Chinese medicine. They consult them when they think they have a better system of cure for a disease. In the time of COVID, that's what happened. But even Chinese medicine got a Nobel Prize in 2015 for a malarial drug. The discoverer was a lady, To Yu. She was a biochemist originally, but then she became a great scholar of traditional Chinese medicine. She picked up some drug which is in a 2nd century book. Initial trials found that that did not work. But then they went back to the book and found the processes that had to be employed before employing that drug. And then it worked. And finally it became a well-known anti-malarial medicine for which the Nobel Prize in 2015 was awarded. So all this is possible if you have the wisdom and the will. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. So to read and to comprehend any old text, what sir was saying, you have to read that script first and you have to learn the language also. And fortunately, sir, we are here in our manuscript section, we are teaching Grantha script to the interested candidates, sir. So far we have trained more than 30 students who can read the Grantha script from palm leaf manuscript and they can transliterate to Devanagari also, with the help of IKS division, Ministry of Education, Government of India, sir. And we are going to extend this program also. And from this stage, I appeal to all the departments of the students of this particular great institution to come forward and learn new script and learn new languages as well. Thank you very much, sir, for your kind words. And I now call upon Dr. R. Naveen, sir, to propose the vote of thanks.
ओम गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुर्साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः. இன்னைக்கு காஞ்சி காமகோட்டி பீட்டாதீஸ்வரர் 69வது பீட்டாதீஸ்வரர் ஜெயேந்திர சரஸ்வதி சுவாமிகளுடைய 91வது ஜெயந்தி. அவருடைய மங்கள ஸ்லோகம் நாம் டெய்லி ப்ரேயரில் இப்படி சொல்லுவோம். பரித்யஜ்ய மௌனம் வட்டாதஸ்திதிஞ்ச விரஜன் பாரதஸ்ய பிரதேசாத் பிரதேசம் மதுஸ்யந்தி வாச்சா ஜனான் தர்ம மார்க்கே நயன் ஸ்ரீ ஜெயேந்திரோ குருர்பாதி சித்தே அப்படின்னு நாம் சொல்லுவோம். இதுக்கு என்ன பொருள்னா, நாம் ஒரு இடத்துல சும்மாவே உட்காரக்கூடாது. நாம் நிறைய காரியங்கள் பண்ண வேண்டியது இருக்குது. நம்மளுடைய பாரத தேசத்தினுடைய புகழ் நிறைய இருக்குது. இந்த ஒரு மணி காலத்தில் எவ்வளோ இவரால் சொல்ல முடியுமோ அவ்வளோதான் சொல்லியிருக்கார். இதிலிருந்து நாம் பண்ண வேண்டிய காரியம் நிறைய இருக்குன்ட்டு இன்றைக்கி ஜெயேந்திர சரஸ்வதி சுவாமிகளுடைய அவருடைய ஜெயந்தி சந்தர்ப்பத்தில் அவருடைய மறைமுகமான ஆக்ஞை, நேரடியாக அவருடைய அனுகிரகம் இந்த சந்தர்ப்பத்தில் நமக்கு எல்லாருக்கும் இருக்குது. நம்ம நிறைய உழைக்க வேண்டிய சந்தர்ப்பம் நிறைய இருக்குது. பேசிகிட்டே சும்மா இருந்தால் பிரயோஜனம் இல்லை அப்படின்றத இந்த சந்தர்ப்பத்தில் பெரியவா நமக்கு சொல்கிறா. அப்புறம் இந்த ஜெயந்திக்கு நம்ம டிபார்ட்மெண்ட் சார்பாக, சம்ஸ்கிருத டிபார்ட்மெண்ட் சார்பாக என்டோமெண்ட் லெக்சர் வைக்கிறது வழக்கம். அப்போது நம்ம டிபார்ட்மெண்ட் சார்பாக போய் நம்ம துணைவேந்தர் அவர்களை சந்தித்து இந்த மாதிரி என்டோமெண்ட் லெக்சர் இருக்குது, யார் வைக்கலாம்னு கேட்டால், அவசியம் இந்த மாதிரி பூர்த்தியாக சம்ஸ்கிருதம் இல்லாமல் இந்த பாரத தேசத்தினுடைய பெருமை நமக்கு யார் அந்த மாதிரி சொல்லுவான்றதை பார்த்து அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு ஆசிரியர், பேராசிரியர் கூப்பிட்டு நாம் இந்த ப்ரோக்ராம் பண்ணலாம்னு சொன்னார். அப்போ இவர் சந்தர்ப்பம் கிடைச்சது. எம்டி ஸ்ரீனிவாஸ் அவருடைய பரிச்சயம் கிடைச்சது. அவர் நமக்கு இங்கே ரொம்ப எவ்வளோ பொறுமையாக சொல்ல முடியுமோ, இப்போ அவர் கூட தான் நான் காத்தாலேருந்து பிரயாணம் பண்ணினேன். நிறைய விஷயங்கள் எவ்வளோ தூரம் பொறுமையாக சொல்ல முடியுமோ அவ்வளோ பொறுமையாக சொல்லி நமக்கு பெரிய ஒரு வழிகாட்டியாக இருந்து சிறப்புரையாற்றி நமக்கு அனுகிரகம் பண்ணினார். அப்பேற்பட்டவருக்கு இந்த யூனிவர்சிட்டி பட்சத்து சார்பாகவும் அதே சமயத்தில் நம்மளுடைய டிபார்ட்மெண்ட் சார்பாகவும் மிக்க நன்றியை தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கிறேன். அதே மாதிரி நம்ம துணைவேந்தர் அவர்கள், அவர் எப்பயும் நம்ம டிபார்ட்மெண்ட்டில் புதுசாக அதை பண்ணணும், அதாவது நிறைய விஷயங்களை அந்த வாட்டர் மேனேஜ்மெண்ட், அந்த கஜ சிகிச்சை, அஸ்த சிகிச்சை, இந்த மாதிரி பெரிய பெரிய சாஸ்திரங்கள், வெறும் சாஸ்திரம் படிச்சுட்டு சும்மா இருந்தால் பிரயோஜனம் இல்லை. நிறைய இந்த மாதிரி புது விஷயங்களை ஜனங்கக்கிட்ட கொண்டு போகணும் அப்படின்னு அவர் அப்பப்போ ஏதாவது புஸ்தகம் சொல்லுவார். அந்த சந்தர்ப்பத்தில் நானும் தேடி பார்த்து அப்பப்போ கற்றுக்கிறது வழக்கம். அந்த மாதிரி நமக்கு ஒரு துணைவேந்தர் இந்த சந்தர்ப்பத்தில் நமக்கு கிடைச்சிருக்கார். இந்த அவகாசத்தை நாம் உபயோகப்படுத்திக்கணும். அப்பேற்பட்ட துணைவேந்தர் அவர்களுக்கு மிக்க நன்றியை இந்த சந்தர்ப்பத்தின் வாயிலாக கேட்டுக்கொள்கிறேன். அதே மாதிரி நம்ம சம்ஸ்கிருத துறையின் தலைவர் திரு தேவஜோதி ஜனா அவர்களுக்கும் இந்த சந்தர்ப்பத்தில் நன்றியை தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கிறேன். மற்றும் நமது சக பேராசிரியர்கள் எல்லோருக்கும், நாகேஸ்வர் ராவ், சிவகுமார் சார், அப்புறம் சுபச்சந்தர் ஜா, எல்லா ஆசிரியர் பெருமக்களுக்கும் எனது நன்றியை இந்த சந்தர்ப்பத்தில் தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கிறேன். மற்றும் எங்களுக்கு ஒரு பெருமை இந்த சந்தர்ப்பத்தில் கிடைச்சது. துணைவேந்தர் அவர்கள் சொன்னார், ஐகேஎஸ் மூலமாக இந்த மாதிரி மேத்தமெட்டிக்ஸ் மற்றும் நாங்கள் அந்த சம்ஸ்கிருத அத்தியாபகர்கள் சேர்ந்து பண்ணுறோம்ன்ட்டு. இதுமாரி இந்த மாதிரி ஊக்கம் எங்களுக்கு கிடைச்சதுனால தான் மேலும் மேலும் ப்ராஜெக்ட் பண்ணணும்னு நினைக்கிறோம். அதுக்கு பெரியவாளுடைய அனுகிரகம் இந்த சந்தர்ப்பத்தில் தேவைப்படுறது. அதே மாதிரி வித்தியார்த்திகள் ரொம்ப கடைசி வரையும் பொறுமையாக இருந்து மாணவ செல்வங்கள் அனைவரும் பொறுமையாக இருந்து பேசாமல் இந்த ப்ரோக்ராமை நடத்தி கொடுத்ததுக்காக அவளுக்கு மிக்க நன்றியை இந்த சந்தர்ப்பத்தில் தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கிறேன். அதே மாதிரி மற்ற துறையினர், அந்த கணித துறையிலிருந்து ஆசிரியர் பெருமக்கள் அனைவரும் இங்கே வந்திருக்கிறார்கள். அதே மாதிரி நிதித்துறையை சேர்ந்த அதிகாரி அவரும் வந்திருக்கிறார். அவர் எல்லாருக்கும் இந்த சந்தர்ப்பத்தில் நன்றியை தெரிவித்துக்கொண்டு, ஒளி இது ரெண்டுத்தையும் ஏற்பாடு செய்த நமது ஆசிரியர் பெருமக்கள் அனைவருக்கும் இந்த சந்தர்ப்பத்தில் மிக்க நன்றியை தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கிறேன். யாரையாவது விட்டு இருந்தால் அவர்களுக்கும் சேர்த்து இந்த இடத்தில் நன்றியை தெரிவித்துக்கொண்டு விடைபெறுகிறேன். நன்றி, வணக்கம்.
Thank you very much, Naveen sir. Sir, one important notice, please stay here. Please stay here. Yeah. After the program is over, all the students are requested to move to their respective departments without making any noise, and all the staff members of various departments are asked to be, or required to be here as per the higher authorities direction. So we had a great program, great lecture. As a Chinese scholar says, if I listen, I forget. If I see, I remember for a while. But if I do, I will understand. So this is what I would like to say to all the students of our own department and all the other students of other departments, to please do something on what happened today. So there was a story of Arabian Nights. A Indian scholar went to Persia to show the wooden horse which can fly, and only 3 scientists were welcomed in those days in Persia, and one is from Egypt, one is from China, and third one is from India, Hindu nation. So I would like to see some more scientists from India who can go and exhibit their talent in the upcoming Dubai Expos, where all the talents of the world come and compete, especially from our university. If anybody grows with the Indian traditional systems, with the knowledge, then it is the real proud of the country. Thank you very much. Now we will stand for the national anthem. जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता, पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा, विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा, तव शुभ नामे जागे, तव शुभ आशीष मागे, गाहे तव जय गाथा, जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता, जय हे जय हे जय हे, जय 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 हे. जय हिंद. All the staff members, faculty members are requested to be remain in the hall.